Welcome, guys. It's your host, Coach Carroll, in the Sales Factory. I got another episode today. My man Steve Miller's with me, a Columbus, Indiana native, even. Not too far from Louisville, Kentucky. Steve's a leading expert in personal branding, so we're going to have some fun with that today. Dude's written 10 books, 4 of them being bestsellers on Amazon. The latest one, Uncopyable. So we'll be talking about that today, all things branding, marketing. Plus, he's got a terrible towel in the background, so you know I'll make some Steelers jokes as well. Steve Miller, welcome to the Sales Factory, my man.
Coach, nice to meet you, man.
Yeah,
Nice
absolutely.
to meet you. And fellow, I don't know, what do we call us? The southern Indiana, Kentucky people.
Yeah.
I don't know
I'm
what we
actually
call it.
I'm originally from Indianapolis, and I had a business coach back in the day that, I moved to Kentucky when I was 15 when my parents divorced. I moved with my mom down to Kentucky and like rural Kentucky, like 10,000 people in the county. And my business coach, he would tell me like when I would go out of town with him and stuff, he's like, when people ask where you're from, just tell them Indianapolis. He's like, no business people come from Kentucky. So he was like,
No
he was,
business people come from Kentucky.
yeah,
I like that.
and so, I used to
I
always
like
just say, it's
that.
like, where am I from? I'm from Indianapolis. I just live in Kentucky now, so it wasn't a lie.
Yeah, but you see, it's even like, okay, you're from Louisville. See, and 90% of the people that you and I have ever met have no idea how to pronounce that city's name.
Yeah.
And
It's Louisville, Louisville.
That's right. That's right. But you know what? Yeah, growing up in down there, because the first weekend of every May,
Yeah, man. Kentucky
Derby,
Derby. And
Derby.
then the last weekend of May, they run the real race, which happens up in Indianapolis, the Indy
Well,
500.
yeah. See, but there's also an in between, because the second weekend is time trials. So I tell you what, May, nothing, no work gets done. School doesn't get done. Nothing gets done.
Yeah,
And I
lots of
don't know if I
horsepower.
can say that. I don't know if I can say this but the infield of the Kentucky Derby was where I saw my first topless woman. So anyway,
Hey,
as a
I like
kid,
it.
as
Hey,
a as a
Coach Carroll is a fan of topless women. I mean,
you know and
you're
I was
more than
yeah
welcome to express those feelings on the Sales Factory.
I was like in eighth grade, and let me tell you, it left quite an impression upon me. So
Yeah, for the people that don't know the Kentucky Derby, because I didn't even know what the Derby was when I moved down here. Everybody's like, "Oh, you go to the Derby?" I'm like, "What, a demo Derby? What is this happening?" Right? The Kentucky Derby is like the most watched horse race in the world.
in the
It's the
world,
fastest 2 minutes in sports, as they call it,
yeah,
and
yeah,
the infield is like the inner part of the track. And from what I hear back in the day, it was just a fuck
nuts.
party, man.
It was
And
just
and it's
crazy.
still a little bit that, but like I talked to some of the old timers and they're like, no, you don't understand what a $5 infield ticket used to be. Like
Yeah,
it
yeah.
was,
No, we used to go, but and of course now, since I'm much older, when I've gone back, the few times I've gone back, we're up in the stands somewhere, and
yeah.
I kind of look out at that infield, I go, oh, I kind of miss that place.
Yep. Yep. Well, man, thanks for joining us today on the podcast. I can already tell this is going to be a fun one. I love branding. A lot of my episodes, being an entrepreneur, I tell my students, my listeners that, a couple of things you need to know how to do is sell and then stand out, right? Because a lot of small business owners, they think like they have all these problems. And most of the time, their biggest problem is not enough people know what they do, right? And if you solve that problem, a lot of the other problems solve themselves, because I always say, if people know what you do and know who you are and what you do, then they can give you money, right? I can't give you money if I don't know who you are and what you do for
Yeah,
me, right? And then once I get money, then I can
right.
throw money at the other problems and that'll take care of them. And so I'm excited to talk about this a little bit. Let's kind of peel back a little bit. 10 books, dude. Holy smokes. Congratulations on that.
Anybody who likes to write books is a very sick person. And I'm going to be very blunt about that, because you know what? I'll tell you, my first book I wrote a long time ago. And it took me forever to write that darn book. But fortunately for me, I had already before I wrote the book, which my original book was how to get the most out of trade shows. I actually became a very well-known trade show marketing consultant, both to exhibitors as well as the companies that put on the trade shows. And it was a great niche. It was a really great niche. And they had there were a couple of books about it, but nothing from I came from the corporate background.
Okay.
So all of the books that were written about it were from suppliers in the industry, you know. But I came from the guy who was, schlepping the booth around and putting it up and doing the work and everything like that. So when I wrote the book, it came from that perspective. Man, it just knocked it right out of the park.
Uh-huh.
But when I wrote it, I pre-sold it to McGraw-Hill. In other words, I signed the contract before I even wrote the book, so I was forced to write it, and I didn't realize how hard it is to write a book.
Man, you must have been pretty well known because, like, or it was just early enough in the authorship. Like, it's damn near impossible to get a book deal on your first book anymore, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. It's yeah, like you say, on your first deal, But what I ended up doing with my 10 books, and I have very specific opinions about self-publishing versus getting a publisher.
Would love
But
to talk about that.
yeah, happy to touch on that. But what I learned, when I got it with McGraw-Hill, and it was a book that people in the industry really wanted. And one of the good things about it that I didn't know at the time was that, you see, I think and talk in one syllable words.
Hmm.
So my book was very easy to read. I mean, it's like just a
Yep.
snap like that. And so that really helped a lot too. But after I did that, I built up a name in the industry, in the trade show world, and had connections, huge connections. So like recently, the Consumer Electronics Show was in Las Vegas, and that's a
Okay.
very famous show. Well, I consulted for them for 20 years, and
Really?
on building the show and growing the show and designing the show and attracting attendees and making the exhibitors really good and everything like that, and dozens of other shows that are almost as big as CES around the world. So massive audiences, right? They have a few thousand exhibitor companies. So it occurred to me, and this is part of finding the right target market. We call it the moose right there,
Okay.
right? Your target market is the moose. In other words, you're a hunter in the forest and you are hunting moose. Okay, so first of all, you got to go find a forest that has a moose,
Uh-huh.
right? Florida doesn't have very many moose so you got to find a forest. Number two is you find the moose, all right, and you aim it, and you're going after the moose. No other animals.
Yeah.
You're
I call it
only
hunt.
going after the moose.
I call it hunt the game that's in season. If you
That's
go
right.
deer hunting, you don't just like, oh, I see a squirrel, I'll just shoot it too. It's like, no, that's not what's in
No,
season.
no, and that's exactly right. I mean, it's not rocket science to teach somebody this, but then you also now once you've identified your moose, you want to make sure you want to find a hungry moose,
Mm.
and you want to like you say, they're in season, right? A hungry moose, and then you figure out what do they want to eat, okay, and that's your product. So you go through that's the process of doing this. So once I understood that I had an audience, CES has 2 or 3 thousand exhibiting companies, right?
That's
So
huge. I've always wanted to go to that show.
it's yeah, you want to go to that show. I mean, I first time I went to that show, my dad, no sorry, my dad was the co-inventor of the 8-track tape player. And
Whoa.
so he would take me to the show. I was like 13, 14 years old, going to CES back then. And so I kind of grew up with that event.
That's
Uh,
cool.
um, but think about it now, okay? So I wrote, so then I decided, okay, I'm going to self-publish a book. And what would be the definition of the reason why I would self-publish the book? And the definition was, who can buy a lot of these? I am not going to sell self-published book one by one.
Huh.
So guess what? CES buys 2,000 copies.
Wow.
Not only did they buy 2,000 copies, but the thing is, and this is part of having this relationship. See, like we were talking about you mentioned having like a brand, your personal brand.
Hmm.
Okay, they got to know you, right? They got to know who you are, right? They got to like you, okay? They got to trust you. We've heard those things forever. Know,
Yep.
like, and trust, right? But there's one that's the people are forgetting, and not even thinking about. They got to remember you.
Ah.
That is so hugely important. Okay, so they got to remember you. I remember I was another story, but I was working in Hollywood, and I was talking to a producer who was going to hire me, right? And I said, "Thank you very much, and I really appreciate it." I said, I guess it's what they say, it's who in Hollywood, right? And he looked at me and said, "No, it's not. It's who knows you,
Mhm.
not who you know.
Who
It's
knows who?
who knows you." He said, and if you can get people to know you, then they'll hire you. So I just say they got to remember you. So that when
Yeah.
the lightning bolt comes out of the sky, and strikes them, and they go, oh man, I got to find a coach. Who do I? Well, they don't. Are you the first one they think of? Are you the second one they think of? I want to be the only one they think of. And you know who I learned that from? I learned that from Jerry Garcia,
Ah. The
Grateful
tight
Dead.
guy.
He said he was quoted as saying, "You do not want to be the best rock and roll band. You want to be the only
I like that.
rock and roll band. You want to be the only one who's doing it." So you see, so all right. Already we're already jumping into some real going into a couple of different directions. But anyway, but the point being was that I was able to go out to organizations like CES. And this is what I teach clients too, is I say you got to build a reputation with an organization that can buy multiple copies.
Hmm.
Right. So I would go to see the CESs, the housewares show, the internet, the manufacturing shows, the automotive, the candy. I helped build the candy show. And I would go to them and I would say, I'm going to write this book, and I want you to uh, buy 2,000 copies.
What would they
And
do with those 2,000 copies? Just give them out to the attendees, like in their
to
like
the
goodie
exhibitors,
bag
to the exhibitors.
to the exhibitors. Okay.
The exhibitors are actually their moose. Don't don't confuse.
Yeah, it's kind of like a NASCAR race, right? Like everybody that goes to a NASCAR race thinks like, "Oh, I bought a ticket to the race. I'm the
You
customer.
are not
You're
the
the product. You're not the
you are the
customer.
product.
The race
Exactly
team is
right.
the customer.
Yeah.
The
The
sponsors are the
sponsor.
customers.
Sponsors. So you
Eh,
go. So you are looking for the sponsors, and that's the exhibitors. They are the ones who write the checks.
mhm.
Attendees don't write checks.
Right, right.
you
They
know
buy a
to
$35
to to
ticket or
the
something.
to the show.
Right.
They don't write checks to the show. I said, and exhibitors at trade shows for the most part suck. They're exhibitors at trade shows are terrible marketers.
Yeah.
Good, God bless them that they're terrible marketers, because and it's common knowledge.
Yeah. We got to the point, Steve, where, we were getting invited to all these different trade shows. And I was like, hey, listen, we don't go to a trade show if I'm not speaking. And they're like, well, we don't have a budget. I was like, you don't have us as an attendee, I guess. Because what was happening was like, if we went to the trade shows, it's like we're standing around and everybody's like, oh, you blend in. You're a wallflower at that point. You look like every other booth. But if I go there, I speak, and like Coach Carroll gets up and does his thing, there's a line out the door at the booth after I come off stage, right? And so we said, that makes sense. And so,
There's yeah
you
that
know,
and
we we
there's a
started kind of we started
go
putting
back to
some
yeah. If you go
we
back
start
and you see some of my books, you're going to see stuff like that where I'll say, try to be a speaker, okay?
mhm.
But then I give a whole bunch of other stuff that they can do that
Can you
you
give us a
don't,
couple of those?
you don't blend it well. Okay, first of all, uh, uh, what do you think is the average color of a trade show booth in every trade show in the world? What is the average color?
I know
You already
pipe
know
and
it.
like the pipe and drape is black, right? Or white.
Well, but the booth.
Oh, the booth
People
itself.
design their own booths. Don't
I don't
pipe
know,
and drape
blue
doesn't
maybe.
blue.
Blue, blue.
Why is
Yeah,
it blue? Why is it blue?
I don't know.
IBM blue.
I don't know. Yeah.
But IBM is IBM Blue. It's what it's called. It's called IBM Blue. When IBM decided to really go big time in branding themselves, they picked their own color blue. And then all the other competitors started saying, well, if IBM says blue is the right color, that's the color we should use. So then they started going to the trade shows, and all the everything in their booth was blue. And then the other exhibitors, the other morons that are out there on the exhibit floor, they're walking around and they're looking at these exhibitors, and they're going, what are they doing? What are they doing to make their? This is how exhibitors learn, because they walk around and they point at the other exhibitors, their competitors, and they say, what are they doing? And they go, oh, they got, oh, their booth is blue. So how do you so if an attendee is walking down the aisle and their head is on a swivel, it's just going like this, it's like going like this, right? And if everything blends in, then they have no reason to stop, right? But all of a sudden, if they're walking by and somebody's booth is
Orange. Yeah.
bright orange, they all of a sudden the reticular activating center activates in the brain, which means and it's like, oh, what's that? So now you've caught and you caught their attention. No, then and once they slow down or anything like that, the booth staff has to be trained to be able to say, you slowed down. And you're here for a reason. So can we talk to you? And it's that simple. And the attendees 90% of the time are gonna go, yeah.
Yeah. I always one of my things is like the table. I call it the table of disconnection, where like
Mhm.
booth worker, like if you see them, they're standing behind their table or
Yeah,
standing.
why? Yeah,
It's
they
like you got
stand
to get
behind.
out on the
Yeah,
front side of
there
that,
should
almost
be
like.
there should be nothing there. But you see, that's where they learned that from looking at the other exhibitors.
Yeah. And
See,
so the other thing too is I'd like your intake on this. We always had like our intriguing question, right? So like all of our trade show stuff says we unleash the power of AI in your small business, right? And
Mhm.
so our question is it's like, hey, what AI platforms are you using right now? And then because it's not a like, hey, are you interested or whatever? It's an open-ended question that if they say, oh, we're not using any, right, which would be the non-answer. It's like, oh, well, why not, dude? Like, come over here. Let me tell you what our
Yeah,
platform.
that's it. Yeah, in fact, they're still saying, you know what they're still saying? They're still saying, I don't know about AI. I don't
Right.
know. We're not
Yeah.
really sure we want to go there.
Yeah.
That's the answers you're getting right now. But you
Yeah.
but you see, you ask a question that somebody stops in. I always say, just ask the Nordstrom question. Because if you go to a Nordstrom, they ask the same question. Can I help you find something today?
Mm,
Right? See,
yeah.
because they are here to find something.
Yeah.
That's why they're walking down up and down the aisles. Can I help you to find something? Is it, what's going on up here, that you're looking for? And I mean, if, and then ultimately, if I'm talking AI, then ultimately I'm going to I'll say, oh, you're working on this? Okay. All right. Are you using AI with them?
Mm,
Now,
that's cool.
see, now you're kind of steering the conversation, right?
Yeah.
But the bottom line is that you asked me to give you another tip besides the speaking thing. Color is another thing, but the third tip is real simple. It's look at where everybody else is doing and don't do it.
With my first startup, Easy Pro is a blue collar business, power wash and window
Yeah,
cleaning. And
yeah,
and we would do the apartment association trade shows, right? Because we do a lot of apartment complexes
sure,
all across the
sure,
Midwest and Southeast.
yeah,
It's always funny because I know that if there's 200 people at these small regional trade shows, 15 of them are the people I'm looking for. It's those regional managers that can actually sign a contract. And so it was always funny when I would have team members with me and they're like looking around and everybody's got the fish bowl that you put your business card in, right? And we would have maintenance guys or front desk receptionists or leasing consultants. They'd almost come up with their card in hand. They're like, are you guys doing a giveaway? And I'm like,
yeah,
no.
yeah.
And they're like, oh.
No,
And the team member's like, well, why aren't we doing a giveaway? Everybody else is doing it. I was like, because I don't need the leasing
because
consultant's business
everybody else
card.
is
They're not the
look at what
decision.
everybody
They're
else
not
is
my
doing.
moose.
Look at what everybody else is doing and don't do it.
Yeah. Yeah,
I,
man.
I have no problem with giveaways, but what I do is I make them earn it.
Hmm.
Okay. Yeah, I say, people will come in and if I, I mean, this is interesting because I didn't know we were gonna have a trade show conversation, but that's cool. No, it's totally cool because this stuff all applies,
Yeah,
right? But
absolutely.
imagine, so you have a conversation with somebody, and ultimately you reach a point in the conversation where you cannot go any further,
Right.
right? And so now the average salesperson says, "Oh, well, give me your card and we'll or I'll scan your badge, and we'll get back to you." Right? That's
Yeah.
what everybody says. But you see, a smart marketer set or and salesperson, they get to the point where you go, okay, hey, we're as far as we can go right here. Do we agree that this conversation could and should go on? Number one. So if they say no, well then you didn't get anywhere with them,
Right.
right? So then you have to decide what you want to do, all right? But if they say yes, you go, okay, cool. How should we proceed?
Hmm.
What should be the next step in our relationship building? What should be the next step? Should I
I
call
like that.
you? Should we do a Zoom? Should I email you? What should we do? And the attendee says, well, I probably would like to talk about this as soon as possible. So maybe we can talk, in the next couple of weeks. And then you go, got your calendar? Well, see, that's what this is. You're
Yeah.
going, you have your calendar, and then you go, and they go, yeah, of course I do. I've got my calendar. It's right here. Well, then let's set up an appointment.
Yeah.
See, so
And
now you've
it's
got a
making sure.
mutually agreed to next step in the relationship building process.
Yeah, and I think it's about making sure that the people are qualified too, right? Like
Well,
you don't
you don't
like
go anywhere without qualification first.
yeah,
You
it's
got to
like
make sure they're moose. You
right.
got
It's
to
like
make
I don't want to come home with a stack full of business cards of people that aren't my customer, right? Like
No, yeah.
it's
I'd rather cut,
pointless.
like you say, I would, you're looking for 15 out of 200. You know what? At most, I'm going to be talking to maybe 20 people, 30 people, or something like that, because I'm going to identify them first. I'm going to qualify them first. I mean, essentially, I'm going to ask them a question that in so many words is, "Are you a moose?"
Right.
Because
I,
a moose is the definition of my target.
yeah, absolutely. You
They're a moose.
take
They're a
on
moose.
that
They're
one.
a hungry moose. This is the kind of food they want, and they're looking for more food,
Yeah. I love it,
right?
man.
As
Well,
as
that's
long
like
as they,
right out. We're coming right out the gate hot with value. If you guys are listening, you're going to trade shows. There was
it doesn't.
some
See, this
fire.
all of this applies to everything. It applies to marketing. Like if you do a marketing campaign, you're still whether it's an email campaign or you do banners or you're posting, you're doing social media and stuff like that.
Yep.
It's the exact same process.
Yeah,
Are
because
you
it's all branding, right? Like it's who you are and who you want to
Well,
work with.
okay. Well, the first thing is that I want to do is I want to get the moose to first of all stop, all right, just like they stop at a trade show booth. Because if they don't stop, that's the first thing. I used to say to people, I'd say, what is the single most important thing that you need to be able to do to talk to a moose? And they're like, well, yeah, yeah, yeah. I go, no, it's one word, it's 4 letters. Stop. If they don't stop in your booth, you got nothing. All
Mm.
right. So same thing online. If they don't stop and pay attention to
Just
you,
yeah. Gotta
that like you say,
stop.
they're scrolling, they're flipping, they're doing all that stuff, right? You want to if they have to stop and look at you, and then and whether it's through a lead magnet, whether it's through something or other, a question or an assessment, whatever you use, okay,
Yep.
where and to where they're going to give you their name and their email address, okay. In other words, what we say, they're going to raise their hand
Yeah.
or their paw, hoof, whatever the hell they are, whatever moose have, right? They're going to raise their hand and they're going to go, I'm interested in learning more. The moment they raise their hand, you now have the person has now gone from, because prospects are not leads. Leads are not prospects. Okay. A prospect is simply a definition of your moose.
Mm.
A lead is a moose who has raised their hand.
Mm. I like
That's what
that.
a lead is.
Yeah, we
So,
we we categorize our prospects because yeah, not all prospects are created equal, right? Like
right, they're not.
somebody, out there that doesn't know about us but has a problem is a prospect, right? They're just not in our
Yep.
funnel. But there also could be somebody that knows about us. Hell, they may even have been on one of my webinars, but they don't have the problem that we solve. Still a prospect, just a different level of a prospect. And I think that's one of the biggest problems that small business, not probably one of the
But
biggest problems,
again,
but a problem that small business owners have is that they just kind of paint with a broad brush across prospects and leads as if everyone is exactly the same, and they're not.
yeah, it's the old I would and I started saying this back in the trade show back in the when I was in the trade show world, right? I used to say, just because anybody can fog a mirror walking down the aisle doesn't mean that they're one of your moves, right? They're
Yeah,
not a prospect, okay? So but the prospect has to it's okay. You can define them and they can be a moose, right?
yeah,
But if until they raise their hand, they are not a lead. They are not a lead
I
because a
like that.
lead, you now go into a different part of the funnel.
Yeah,
All right. Because now
absolutely.
you're going to go into where you're getting in, there might be 100 prospects, or like you said, originally you said what, 200
Yeah,
pros,
200 people at
200
the show,
people, 15 are,
actual
so,
decision
so
makers.
what you're trying to do is you're trying to find the 15.
Yeah, and those would be our actual leads from the show.
Those are well, when they say I'm interested, they
Hmm.
are now a lead.
Yeah,
Until they say I'm interested, they are not a lead.
I
You
love
could
that, man.
you can I mean you could talk till you're blue in the face. You can try to convince them, which is bullshit. And I'm sorry for saying that. But
Ah, it's fine.
uh you know uh
My audience has heard a lot more colorful language from me, Steve. It's all good.
well, we've already said Louisville. So and but see the thing is, yeah, that's the thing is that you've got to get people if they it's the old one of the stupidest phrases in the history of business is find a need and fill it. Okay, that is so stupid
Interesting. Okay.
because you know what, I think everybody needs me. There's one big problem. Let's look at it this way. Okay, what kind of a car do you have, Coach?
I just purchased one of the brand new Hummer EVs.
Okay, you just purchased this. All
Yeah.
right. So you need another car, right?
No, I needed a Section 179 tax deduction.
No, no, no. But right now you need another car, right?
Oh, right now, no.
No, wait. But I think you need a car.
Why do you think I need a car?
Well, because you fit the profile of my moose,
Yeah.
and I have cars to sell. So
Well,
I
that
think
doesn't that doesn't mean I need
find
it.
a need and fill it. See the definition is not my definition of a need. It's that you think you have a need. See the difference? If I'm selling something, I we all of us that are in sales and marketing, we think everybody needs us.
Yeah.
Okay. But if you do not think if you do not agree with that statement, if you do not agree that you have a need, I will never sell you.
I think that statement goes back to the find the need as in like in the marketplace, right? Like one of the podcasts that I just recorded earlier today was a lady that was in the moving industry, and she had been in the moving industry for years, and what she saw was that in like large freight cargo, there's these like job boards almost where it's like, hey, I got a load going to Kansas. We're based out of Louisville. The truck's coming back. I need to find a load in Kansas to bring back with me so I'm not empty, and there wasn't anything thing for the residential space, right? So like, hey, I moved a family to California. My truck's got to come back. Is there anybody in California moving to Louisville? And so she built this SaaS business that allows that to happen. And so I think that's what the saying comes down to is
Well,
like
you're all,
find.
yeah, but you're also connect. You see, in the example you're talking about, you see, is that the person who has an empty rig, an empty load, right? They think everybody, they're like going, there are a lot of people out there who need me. Okay, yeah, you know what? Until you find somebody who says, hey, I agree with you. I need this. Right? The moment somebody says, I agree with you, I need that. That is an acknowledged need. It's the old thing about uh, um our yard. If you saw my yard right now, you would think I was the worst homeowner. And I say that all serious. My yard looks like crap, front yard and backyard, because we've been attacked by um, raccoons and crows, and there are grubs
Mm,
down underground that they want to eat.
yep, they'll tear
So
the
how do
yard
they
up,
get to them?
dig it up.
They literally tear the yard up. And I mean, it looks like we're excavating our yard. And nobody knows how to stop these guys. But there are a handful of other neighbors down the street whose yards are just destroyed. They're totally destroyed. Well, so right now our neighbors next door have this beautiful yard, and I go and they go, wow, what are you gonna do? And I go, I don't know. We gotta find somebody to help us fix this, right? We gotta find somebody who's gonna either kill the grubs or keep these guys away and stuff like that.
All my lawn care listeners are like, kill the grubs, man. Treat for grubs.
That's right. That's right. And if you know the answer to that, see, I am a moose who has a need,
Yeah.
an agreed to need. See, but you see, until that happened to me, if the lawn care guys had come along and they'd said to me, you know what's underneath your grass? There are grubs underneath your grass, and they're gonna cause a lot of problems for you and stuff like that. And I'm gonna say, what are you talking about? I've had this yard for years. I've had this house for 23 years. I've had no issues. And they go, no, trust me. See, and I'm just going to say, go away. I don't
Yeah.
acknowledge that I have a need. I don't agree that I have a need. But the morning that my wife came running into our bedroom and said, you're not going to believe this. Go look at our yard. And I went out and within, at that very moment, I thought, I need help. I need somebody who can
So,
do
so you
this.
need to find an acknowledged need and fill
It's
it.
exactly right. An acknowledged need, an
Yeah.
agreed to need. And the moment you find somebody who has an agreed to need, and in marketing, the number one thing to find is pain.
Yeah.
If
I,
you,
I've seen this. I've seen this, Steve, in my business because we started Carroll Media in 2016, and I was shouting from the rooftops to insurance agents and real estate agents like, "Hey, you need to be on social media, man. Like this is the thing. This is." And people are like, and it's funny because in 2016 they're like, I think this social media thing is a fad, right? And now like when I do my speeches on stage, it's funny because I'm like, "Hey, raise your hand if you think the internet's a fad," and everybody laughs and chuckles. And I'm like, exactly, because it's been 25 years, right? But social media has not been around that long. So then I'm like, raise your hand if you think social media is a fad. And then there's still like one or two out there.
yeah,
But to
yeah,
your point, in 2016 there were insurance agents, some successful guys throughout. We work with some of the top State Farm, Allstate, and Farmers agents, and we had agents that were like, I don't know, DJ. And what's happening now is like I literally had a guy, Charlie Pelt, he's in Georgia. He texted me the other day. He was a customer for, I don't know, 6 months back in like 2018, 2017. He did it for a little bit and then he dropped off. And he's like, hey man, I just got back from a mastermind. This dude worth mega millions of dollars said if you're not on social media, you're missing out. And I instantly thought of you, right? So there comes that memorable thing. He remembered me. Not only did he know,
yeah.
like, and trust me, he remembered me.
I
He
remembered
sent
you.
me a text message. I call him up, and he's like, "Cool, man. Whatever we need to spend. I got 3 offices. Let's get it rolling." And that's that. Like Now he has the need. He's like, okay, cool. Now I need
Yeah,
to do social media and
yeah.
different
And
things.
until he acknowledged he had the need, you could have been talking to him for 20 years.
Yeah, exactly. No,
Speaking of
I'll
that,
drop a crash register on that one. That one's good,
yeah,
man.
speaking of that, okay, 20 years. This guy, this is actually a client of mine who's based in Pittsburgh. All right, big Steeler fan. I mean, obviously that's a terrible towel
Yeah.
from Pittsburgh that both you and I hate. And
Well, hold on. Oh, time out. You hate him? You don't. You're not a fan.
I am not a fan.
So what's up with the terrible towel then?
I'm explaining it to you.
Okay, all right.
Remember when we first got on and you looked and you said, "Wow, look at that background."
Uh-huh.
What did I say?
You said everything walks
Everything walks the
the
talk.
talk. Yeah,
That is a sponsorship.
interesting.
My client pays me, regularly to consult for them, but I do a lot of podcasts and I do a lot of, and inevitably somebody makes a comment about this. And I say, yeah, that was put there by Zaresco work truck equipment in Pittsburgh. They're based in Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, Cleveland. I think that's it. And they build utility trucks. The landscapers, the plumbers. You see all those trucks these guys driving around, right?
Yeah,
That's what they build. Okay. And you never know when somebody has a small business like that who all of
yeah.
a sudden wants to grow a little bit. And so instead of having their pickup truck in the back, they now only have some kind of a truck that has their name on the side. So, and also they want to be able to put stuff inside, and everything like that. Well, that's what Zaresco does for them.
Huh. So
Zaresco
now
does.
you've got the towel in the background. So when somebody says something about the towel, you give them a plug.
If somebody always says something.
So then who's your NFL team then? I got to ask.
Seattle. I live in Seattle.
Okay, all right.
I've been here for
The
a
the OG
long time.
the OG Coach Carroll, right? Pete Carroll. I'm glad that guy's retired because
I was going to tell you there are. I now know three different Carols in my life, and and going into this call, I was like, I have one that I love. He's my best friend. He's my daughter's godfather. Lives in Albuquerque. Larry Carroll. Okay, and the other one is Pete Carroll, who I just hate.
yeah. Well,
And I have always hated them because of what he did to the kids at Southern Cal. And I mean, he bailed on them and they paid the price and he just
yeah,
walked off into the Seattle sunset, and
yeah.
became a big hero up here because he got a Super Bowls, and stuff. But you ask any of my friends, they will tell you I'm not
I'm
a
just
Pete.
I'm glad he finally retired because I've been building up hashtag Coach Carroll my entire career. Right, I've been doing public
Yeah,
speaking since I was
yeah. Oh,
23, and
he'll
I'll
be
be
back.
30.
He's gonna be back next year.
I'll be 37 this year, and so like around football season, if you search Coach Carroll, that's all. Like, I mean, he just steals all of my link juice, man. That's the only thing you find. Now, off peak season, I'm all over. You'll see me, but it's like he pops up left and right during football
Well, and
season.
see,
So.
that's what so you need to work on stuff like that. And
Yeah, the problem is there's nothing I can do to outrank CBS Sports, Fox Sports, ESPN. Like, none of that's gonna outrank.
let me
So
think. Let me think if I know of any other situation that might be similar. Oh wait, my name is Steve Miller.
Steve Miller Band.
Hello. Okay,
Yeah,
so if
yeah.
you Google Steve Miller, what comes up?
Let's see. Do a quick little search here.
Yeah. Oh, this is gonna be fun.
Steve Miller Band comes
All
up.
right. Okay.
Scroll down.
Am I there anywhere?
SteveMillerBand.com. Steve Miller Wikipedia. Steve Miller Band Wikipedia. Steve Miller musician. Uh, 3 YouTube videos. Steve Miller Band, Spotify, Radical Media. Nope. Sorry, man.
Okay, so how about we add a little twist?
Uh huh.
All right, you have my name up there, Steve
Yep.
Miller. All
Yep.
right, put space,
Mm-hmm.
uncopyable.
Yep. Pops right up.
How far down the page does it go?
I mean, it's the first thing that pops up. Oh, how far down the page does it go?
Yeah.
It's the whole page.
All right. Go to the next page.
Same thing.
Go to the next page. You can go 20 pages. It's
Yeah,
just me. It's just me and my wife.
yeah,
Steve Miller, Uncopyable.
yep.
See, we're taking so you just need a word or something that you attach to Coach Carroll.
Yeah, I mean, if you type in Coach Carroll sales or Coach Carroll entrepreneurship or anything
No,
like
no,
that,
no. You need a,
I'm there.
you need
It's
something that not you. Those are meaningless, vague generalities. They are uncopyable. That and not only that,
but nobody knows to search that unless they know you.
they have to remember you.
Right, 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 right,
See, so,
right.
no, but you see, why would they search Coach
My
Carroll?
original point is it's my hashtag. So what happens is like with social media platforms, unless you were just super early to each platform, which I wasn't. I was early, but I wasn't super early. I still DM the guy that owns at Coach Carroll on Instagram. It's some dude's got like 7 followers. I message him. It's in my calendar. It repeats every year. I message him and his 7 followers every year. I'm like, hey, I will buy this handle from this
Yeah,
guy.
yeah.
I don't have any luck
Oh
with
yeah,
it,
no,
but
uncopyable.com, it has been around for over 20 years. They have never used it,
wow. Is
but
it
they want,
surely you could buy it, right?
yeah, for $30,000.
That's a deal if that's your brand.
No, it isn't. I own the word.
That's
I
exactly.
own the word. I don't need a website anymore. I don't need uncopyable.com because I own the word. Just type in uncopyable.
Right. But I guess my question, Steve, I guess you could just say, hey, just go Google uncopyable. And then
That's
I
right.
guess,
But yeah, but no, but my point is that you see, I everything walks the talk. And you play it to where everything touches to get you there. What color am I wearing? What color is all over me?
yeah. I've,
Orange.
I've seen this with Dan Martell. He calls it buy back your time blue, right? And it's like he wears the same blue
Yeah,
colored
see,
shirt.
and why would you use a color that is owned by IBM?
I don't know.
I
You'd have
would
to ask
never
him
touch
that.
that. I wouldn't touch blue. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. I always tell people, when you walk into a trade show, there's so many, if you are allergic to the color blue, you'll be dead in the first aisle. But here's
Well,
but here,
let's talk about uncopyable. What do you mean by uncopyable? Because now people are like, what the fuck are they talking about? Uncopyable. What is this? So let's
well,
plug. So this is your most recent book, right?
see all four, those are 4 books right there. It's a
Okay.
series. All right, the one on the end is called Uncopyable. That's the original Uncopyable book, How to Create an Unfair Advantage Over Your Competition. All right, that came out 8 years ago,
Okay.
and it went to number one, boom, right out of the box. And
Is that
then
self-published?
no,
Okay. Cool.
no, these are all published by Sound Wisdom, who they're doing a great job for me. And
Very cool.
um, chapter 4 of that book is called Stealing Genius, which is a technique that I learned from a guy named W. Edwards Deming, who was a very famous one of the original management consultants, along with Peter Drucker and a couple of other people. He was one of the first big ones, and he taught something called benchmarking, that is now super common, right?
Yeah.
Um, but back then, we're talking about back in the 50s and 60s when he started. Okay, 50s and 60s. Benchmarking. See, because what did I say? What is it about the box that we're all in? What is it? People say you got to get out of the box. Well, my first question is, okay, uh, what is the box? Tell me, has anybody ever told you what the box is? Nobody's ever told you what the box is. They all
They say get
assume,
out of it.
they just tell you to get out of it. Nobody has ever explained the box. which I find hilarious because everybody's going, get out, you got to get out of the box. I'm like, what is the box? I mean, and if I'm in it, why am I in it? Well, okay, here's the box. All right. We talked about consumer electronics,
Mhm.
the CES. Okay. There is a box for consumer electronics. It's got a big word right on the side, consumer electronics. Inside that box, every company that builds something that is sold to consumers, that is personal electronics of some sort, or computer based or something like that. Every company that exhibits at CES and other similar types of high tech shows, every one of them is in that box. So are all the attendees and all the buyers.
Okay.
So are all the trade shows. So are all the conferences. So are all the magazines. So are all the publications. Everybody and every company that is in consumer electronics is in that box. That's the box. Okay. And what do we do as competitors? Right? We're in that box. So let's say we're an exhibitor. All right. We're a company inside there. We're Samsung or somebody like that, right? And we're in that box. Okay. So we're in a box, big walls around the box. All right. But I'm inside that box. And so benchmarking, and everybody knows what benchmarking means. It means to observe correct behavior and then emulate within your own context. Those were W. Edward Deming's words.
Okay.
When you're in the box, and he complained about this all the time. Because he was hanging out with my dad, and those guys hired him to help them with the 8-track. And as a teenager, I was forced by my father to hang out with 3 old white men, and one of them was Deming, and he used to talk about benchmarking a lot. And he said people do not understand benchmarking. They do not understand the power of benchmarking, because the power of benchmarking is there are 2 parts to the definition. Number 1 is there is intrinsic benchmarking. Number 2 is there's extrinsic. Intrinsic benchmarking is you're in the box. Okay. And who do you see in the box? Everybody else in consumer electronics is in that box. You see everybody else. Okay. And so when you are studying, when you are benchmarking, you're going, oh, I want to see how are we doing? What other ideas are out there? So like that. Who do you look at? You look at the competition. That's who people look at. They're just staring at each other. They're all looking at each other in the box. Okay. And so, one of them says, oh, I got an idea. Let's make our product yellow. We're going to make our whole product line yellow. You know, and what happens? Let's say Samsung says, yeah, we're going to make all our stuff yellow, and then whoever pick out another, I don't know, another company in consumer electronics, and they go, oh, yellow. Not very many people like yellow. We'll use red. People will like red. That's better. Okay, so we see they're benchmarking, and then they're observing correct behavior, which is what's going on within the box, and then they're just coming up with something a little bit. You can't even really. Their definition is that it's better.
Yeah.
People want to take their products, their services, and they say, "Oh, we're going to be better than the competition." Well, nobody buys from you because you're similar to the competition. Nobody. They buy from you because you're different. Just like Jerry Garcia said, you don't want to be the best. You want to be the only
Only
one.
one.
You're the
Yeah.
only one. Okay. So where does the box come in? All right. So now I've described the box. That's the world. Every one of us lives in a box. In a box. Sometimes we live in more than one, but for the most part, there's one box we live in. So that's the box that people are talking about when they say you got to get out of the box. Okay, I'm going to get out of the box. Here we go. Wow. What's out there? Nobody knows. So what good is it for you that you got out of the box? What good is it? Nothing. There's no definition about it or anything like that. See, and that's where Deming's extrinsic benchmarking came in. Extrinsic is when you study all the other boxes. You get out of your box. So if you're in consumer electronics, for example, you get out of your box and you go over to the construction industry box.
Yeah.
You climb into there and you look around in there and you say, is there anything in here that's interesting? And you know what? And here's the thing is that there are behaviors, there are things that we do in our industry that actually is common practice in our industry. You go study other industries, alien encounters, alien experiences. That's what I call them, alien, because they aren't in our box. They're in somebody else's box. You go study those. You can very easily and very often find common behaviors and experiences and things like that that are taught in there that are completely unknown in yours.
I can see that. I can see that being like coming from a contractor, being a contractor, and then going into tech, right? And like being tech in insurance, right? Like it's like the whitest of white collar. Maybe attorneys would be a little, but financial services is like, very white collar tech
Yeah.
to like blue collar with my first startup business. There are a lot of differences. Maybe that's been a little bit of our competitive advantage, but I haven't looked at it the way that you just described it. I'll drop a cash register on that one too, man. That was
Yeah,
good.
well, here's the cool thing about it, right? Is you go look at that. See, like for example, okay, this is and I call it stealing genius,
Okay.
right? That's chapter 4 of my first book. And my client base, once we started teaching people stealing genius, and they just absolutely could not believe how powerful stealing genius is. Once you learn how to do it, because you can steal genius every single day. You can steal genius 24/7 every single day, no matter where you are, what you're doing, who you're with, or anything like that. So for example, I very proactively was doing, I was doing some consulting for Caterpillar.
Okay.
And
The heavy
they,
equipment
and
company.
a little bit, yeah, a
Yeah.
little small equipment company. And they wanted to work on um, teaching drivers and people who were operating their equipment and stuff like that. But they wanted to try to come up with a better way of teaching rather than just manuals and stuff like that. How could they handle that? How could they make the experience of an operator better, right? So their headquarters are outside of Chicago. I threw everybody in a bus and we drove to downtown Chicago, and I took them to the American Girl store. You ever been to the American Girl store?
No, but I'm familiar with what you're talking about.
Yeah, every
I have a 20-month-old, so I'm sure I'll make it there at some point.
girl, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe boys too, but for the most part, it's girl. Okay, if you have a girl and American Girl is still around, you'll be there. So I take these guys in there,
I bet that was a sight.
kicking and screaming.
Yeah.
I didn't tell them I was taking them to a doll store, right? But I took them to the coolest doll store on the planet. And you go in there, and it took me 4 hours to get them out. Because I said, you have notepads. I said, I want you to take notes of what you observe as if you were an alien and you are walking into the store and you're going, what is this? What are they doing? And so, and my daughter, when she was 10 years old, I had a bunch of miles. I said, you want to go anywhere for fun for your 10th birthday? She says, I want to go to the American Girl store. And back then, the only place that it was located was in Chicago. So we went there. I think we ended up spending 7 hours in there.
Wow.
Okay, so you go in, it's a book, and the first thing you see is a bookstore for dolls. Okay, so in other words, they turned the doll into a historical figure. Every doll in the original 8 was from a different era of American history. So it was a history book, but it was about the doll.
Hmm.
It was
That's
living back
cool.
then, right? So you start there, okay? And then you walk through and there's a magazine, the American Girl magazine. And there's a photography studio for you to, for your daughter and her doll to go get their picture taken and put on the cover of American Girl magazine. And then you walk upstairs, and there is and you walk by, and there's a hair salon for your dolls. Okay, and then you go in, and there's a section in there where you can have matching outfits, and then you're hungry. So if you can get a reservation, if you call if you book it 3 or 4 months in advance, you might be able to get a reservation to go into the restaurant, where of course they have a high chair for the doll, they got food for the doll that you get to pay, and and they teach the girls etiquette while you're having lunch or dinner.
It's a whole experience.
All right, and so it's see, the history is education, etiquette, manners, education, right? And then oh, my doll my doll is sick. My doll's not hurt. My doll is sick. So they don't have a customer service department. They have a hospital. And you sign into the hospital. And they come out with a wheelchair to take your doll back into the hospital. Okay. Think about what I just described here. Okay. And this is only part of it. I mean, you got everybody. I've told every marketer, I said, if you do not go and study the American Girl plays, you are missing a complete, unbelievable opportunity.
Hmm.
And so now imagine Caterpillar. So they came out of there, they're saying, well, okay, you know, instead of a customer service department, we'll have something different. Oh, wait, who else did that? How about Apple, the Apple Store?
Yeah. Got the
What
geniuses.
the, do you know that if you go into an Apple store, and I'm praying that this is still true, uh, um, uh, the only word on the wall is words are Genius Bar. That's the only words on
Oh yeah.
all the walls in the back. Genius Bar. What is the Genius Bar? Customer service.
You're right.
They're using their own word.
Yeah.
Okay, so see, so and I've taken clients to Apple stores, and they steal from Apple, they steal from American Girl, they steal from Starbucks, they steal from they. You sit down somewhere and you look around. What can I steal?
Yeah.
Right?
There's a
That's
good
what
book
I.
I read called "Steal Like an Artist," and it talks
Yeah,
about like the four major chords, right? And
yeah,
there's a really cool video called "Axis of Awesome" on YouTube, and it's this band that basically goes through all of these like major hit songs, and they're all played with the same four chords. They're just played at
right.
different beats and
Well,
patterns and things like that.
Steve Jobs was famous for saying, great artists don't borrow, they steal.
Yeah.
Great
Yeah.
artists steal. And so I teach my clients to steal every day. And when you steal something from somebody else's box, you bring it back to yours. If you do it right, it is very, very difficult to copy. Now,
Yeah.
if something is easy to copy, it will be copied just like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
I think I can wholeheartedly say that I think my team does a great job of that. When we launched Alley, which is our AI platform, that's what I did. I kind of looked around and I'm like, we're tech enabled marketing services and we're competing with all these other tech enabled marketing services, but what does no one else have? Oh, they don't have an app that they communicate with their clients on, which
okay,
makes it easier, right? And so like we built one, and it's like our retention rate, our churn was at 10%. It was at 6% last year. It dropped 4 points, which is you're talking about some real money at that point, right? And not only the money, but like great customer service. One of the other things my team's been pushing back on me because, and maybe you can help me with this, Steve, is I've went and stole, and I'm trying to get implement with my team, and now my team is giving me pushback because we have account managers, right? Well, guess what? Every other marketing company has account managers, and so now together looked at all the same. And I said, no, you guys are consultants. You're meeting with these
There's
clients.
something. No, no, something else. Something
Something
else.
even better.
Oh, that is a vague generality.
Okay.
And it's been used over and
Okay.
over again. My title is Kelly's Dad, Uncopyable Gunslinger. Okay.
I did
Now,
see it says Kelly's dad. I was like, okay, that's interesting.
yeah,
That's
because
memorable.
everything walks the talk, though. Everything
Yeah.
walks the talk. There's a reason why I'm called Kelly's Dad, and there's a reason why. And it used to be Marketing Gunslinger, but I updated it to Uncopyable Gunslinger. Okay. Number one, it tells people. I got two parts. All right. It tells people who I am and what I do,
Yeah.
and it tells people my priorities. Kelly, job.
Mm.
All right. See, so I tell it's very clear to people they're those were there for a reason, not just to be cute and stuff like that. Oh, of course it was. But you know what? Now think about it this way. There's a guy in Houston whose name is Jim McInvale. He has 3 furniture stores called Gallery Furniture. He is known as Mattress Mac.
Yeah.
Now, he is famous.
Puts the big bets down.
Yeah, but he was famous before he put the big bets down. He was famous because when Houston got hit by, I think it was Katrina, the hurricane, it just devastated Houston, right? And people were, wiped out of their houses and everything like that. He went on Facebook and he publicly announced to everybody, are you displaced? Do you have nowhere to go? Come to my stores. You can sleep on our beds. You can sleep on our couches. You can sleep on our mattresses. We will feed you. We will find clothes for you. We'll take care of you. All right.
Interesting.
He is a legend in Houston. You cannot walk down the street with him without everybody wanting their picture taken with Matt. So now as one of our things that we do, it's just kind of an out of the box. What about that? Idea is that we just look for people like that. We look for people who are cool people who have done cool things, nice things for people, stuff like that. And we go and we put together an orange box, and inside that orange box we put copies of our books. We put orange sunglasses in there. We put all kinds of goodies in there. Everything's orange, right? Everything's orange. We put all kinds of goodies in there. We send it. We just go, hey, thank you so much for what you're doing. That's so cool. I hope you enjoy this stuff. Oh, by the way, if you have kids or grandkids or something like that, let us know, and we'll send you sunglasses for everybody. Right? Orange sunglasses for everybody. So we did that, sent one to Mac. And a few months later, he's a huge sports fan, right? Bet,
Yeah.
no, not big better, right?
Yep.
And he's definitely a huge Astros fan. So he's there for the opening game of the Houston Astros baseball season. The team comes running out onto the field. They're all in bright orange jerseys, the Houston Astros jerseys. And he sits there and he goes, Steve Miller, Uncopyable. And he called me the next morning and hired me.
Wow.
See, that's the stuff I'm talking about. See, so anchors and triggers.
Yeah.
The word uncopyable is an anchor. People do not do business with you because you're similar to the competition. You have to be different.
Yeah.
But you want to be different in a way that is really, really hard to copy.
I like that.
If not impossible. And so you steal things. See, when you take, all right, when you take that, we have Uncopyable. We have the moose. We have orange. We have all this stuff, right? Okay, I was one of the first. Where am I? Oh, TED. Okay, that's the real TED. That's not TEDx. That's TED. Okay, I'm a TEDster.
If nobody knows what you're talking about the TED Talks.
the TED Talks, right? I was one of the first videos on TED Talks, and because I spoke at the 2007 TED.
Wow.
I was attending there for several years, and I'm talking there. I'm doing my speech right smack in front of me, 10 feet in front of me in the front row, dead center, Cameron Diaz. I didn't see anybody else in the room. And I know, I mean, Bezos was in there. I mean, you name them, they were there. They're in that audience. He's very, 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 very famous, and stuff. And then they called and said, "Hey, we're going to start putting videos on. Your talk is going to be one of the first ones to go on." It's like, this is going to be awesome. My talk was how to think like Tiger Woods, because I was an ex-professional golfer. So I taught everybody how to play golf, but use that as a metaphor for how to think right, how to think better. Okay. And 3 months after the video came out, he had his scandal with his wife. I don't know. Something happened. I don't know where my video is.
The PR team got on that real quick, didn't they?
But yeah, but if you go, I mean, if you go in and search my name in the TED site, they talk about my talk and stuff like that. So anyway, but the point being is okay. So you're a speaker, right? Okay. See, like in that case, there are a lot of TEDx speakers out there. It doesn't take anything to be a TEDx speaker.
Right.
It has no connection with TED at all,
right?
Other than the name. It's a gift from TED to the, you got a conference. Okay, you can call it TEDx, right?
Yeah.
But it's not TED. It's not TED.
One of the original ones.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you go, see, I can put that all together with my stuff, and now this whole package is
uncopyable.
Yeah. Uncopyable. Right. And you guys can, anybody can do that.
Yeah. I like it, man. How do they find your books?
Well, on Amazon.
Amazon's that the best place to get them?
Yeah, or whatever your favorite bookstore is. They're all on Amazon. We got, Kindle, paperback, audio, for all the books and stuff. And our website is uncopyable.com.
I like it.
All right, uncopyable.com.
And I still think 30 grand for uncopyable.com is not a bad deal for you if that's your whole brand.
I'm not missing it. See, that's the thing. I'm not missing anything by not having it.
Is it just blank?
Yeah, go ahead, put it in. Unless somebody bought it.
Yeah, it's nothing. It's just sitting there.
Yeah,
I don't know, dude. I offered them some money, but they no, we don't want 30 grand. I said, you know what, guys, you just Google the word uncopyable. You don't come up anywhere. Right.
I do.
One of my biggest mistakes is a domain name I bought early on in my career was called salesswag.com.
Ooh,
yeah, and I let it lapse and somebody bought it, and then they were like they wanted a shit ton of money. It was almost 6 figures, and I was like, damn, I kick myself in the ass for that one quite often.
Yeah, my original website, I had my first website in 1994.
Wow.
And
but I wouldn't expect anything less from a guy that grew up in the house that made the 8-track.
That's right.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Like that's
but the name of my
plugged into tech like from day one, man.
The name of my website was theadventure.com. theadventure.com. And it was my website until about 2 years ago when I've had Be Uncopyable for a very long time too. But The Adventure was kind of because it was part of who I was. Right. I was a stuntman. And my nickname was Captain Adventure. So we turned this into The Adventure, and you have a lot of fun playing with something like that.
Yeah, right? Absolutely.
So I mean, you can go into the Wayback Machine. You can go into the the Wayback Machine, right?
Yeah.
Go into the Wayback Machine, look at theadventure.com, and you'll find it. I think the first one that pops up in there is like 1995 or something like that, and you can see my original website. That I wrote the HTML for it, and stuff. And again, like I say, I dragged my clients kicking and screaming into the internet world, just kicking and screaming. They
Yeah.
did, none of them wanted to be there, right?
Yeah.
And now I'm dragging them into the AI world.
Yeah.
And
Social
most of
media
them,
was in between. There's a lot of people that didn't want to go there. They thought that it was a huge waste.
well, yeah, social media, absolutely. So,
It's
I mean, see, and that's the thing is, if you want to separate yourself from the crowd, you gotta go, you gotta be ready for stuff like this too.
yeah, you got to be a first mover. For the first mover advantage is a real thing.
Yeah,
And if you're, I also just think that you not only do you get first mover advantage, especially with social media, is because it's my world and it's our business. Is that I always say you don't want to be the plumber that woke up in 2010 and was like, damn, I probably need a website, right? Like
yeah,
you're 10 years behind the curve. And I think there's going to be a lot of businesses that wake up in 2030 and are like, man, I should have figured out this social media stuff. I should have figured out this AI stuff.
AI stuff. Yeah, yeah,
The way that the tech is moving. I don't think we're gonna the people that are actually developing the large language models are different. I think what we're going to see between now and it's probably 24 to 30. I used to say the end of the decade, but it's happening so fast. I
yeah.
think that in the next 24 to 36 months, it's the applications. It's the applications that are built, right? Like Zucks didn't build the internet, but he built Facebook on the
Right.
internet. That's what's going to happen. It's going to be these AI
Well,
applications that are
that's
built on
and
top of
you're
the large
seeing a
language
lot of AI
models.
apps, and you're seeing a
Yeah,
lot, the synthesias and replets and
yep,
ones that are, they're building apps that are AI driven,
yeah. I'll
and
tell you
they're
too, Steve. The internal apps I think are more powerful than the consumer facing because we've been in this like social media world that everybody says, well, what's the consumer using? What's the consumer using? And this is why I actually am like kind of like against the tide here. I don't think the market is overpriced right now if you're looking at valuations on companies because I
Mhm.
think the tailwind of efficiency, dude, just us alone, we picked up a 65% increase in efficiency in our creative department last year because of some of the apps and the tools that either we've bought or we've built internally to use, right? That's nothing our clients see. It's nothing customer
Yeah,
facing. It's stuff that we're doing on the backside. I think that's happening with every company. And you can bet
yeah, I
your ass that
agree.
the Fortune 500 companies
We
are a
don't
lot
know
more
what's
than that.
going. We don't know what we're capable of doing out there. There's so much going on. There's a school, right?
Yeah, yeah. Alex Hermosi, yeah.
Yeah, Hormozy's school thing. One of the school communities that is an interesting one to look at. There are quite a few really interesting ones. I've been following one now for almost a year, and it's Greg Eisenberg, who is a brilliant guy, and his community is called Startup Empire.
Okay.
If you go in there and you track that thing, join it for a little while, it's $149 a month, I think, something like that. These guys are absolutely off the charts with what's new, what's next, what's going on, how to combine this stuff, how to turn it into, I mean, it's unbelievable what the guys in that group are doing. Uh,
That's
um,
wild, man. I'll have to
and
check that one
I
out.
walk around and they go, wait, how old are you? I'm like, I say, well, 1994, before I was born. I go, yeah, yeah, I had my first website.
Yeah, man. Well, Steve, I gotta wrap it up. This has been one of the longest podcasts I've done, man. But this is
I've overkilled it. Sorry.
no, dude. This has been great, man. Lots of information, lots of actionable knowledge that my listeners can take. Whether you're new or been in business a long time, man, there was a lot of stuff that they can take out of here. We put on a masterclass for them, not a podcast. So I appreciate it. Beuncopyable.com/5 dash emails.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
It's a 5 day. Um, my killer wife, um, who by the way at one time was the world's #1 muffler salesperson. That's another story.
We'll have
Um,
to bring you back for that one.
you should bring her back. You
Okay, all right.
should have her come on. Yeah, because she wrote the third book, Uncopyable Sales.
Okay.
And it's based on her experience of being the world's #1 muffler salesperson. And I call her Muffler Mama. But anyway, anyway, no, she put together a 5-day series for building your own personal brand.
Okay. Very cool.
So
Yeah, I'm a huge believer in that, man. Like that's what we tell all of our clients is like you
I know
have
I
to build a
saw it.
personal brand, and it's like, you know, I love when I can have guests on that, you know, are around branding and building, you know, online presence, and like, you know, I really do enjoy the know, like, trust, remember. That's a bit. I mean, that's cool. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah,
Man, the fact that your dad was a partner in the 8-track, that's so cool. That I know somebody connected that.
yeah.
Thank you so much, Steve, for sharing all your knowledge. Guys, go to beuncopyable.com 5-emails. And we'll put that down in the show notes as well. Steve, anything else you want to touch on before we wrap up?
Hey, I just want to, yeah, I want to wrap up. Thank you so much, Coach, for letting me hang out with you today. I just want to remind everybody, okay, being better is never good enough.
Mm,
Do not try to be better than the competition because that will be copyable.
I like that.
Who had the very first who had the heavenly bed in hotel?
The heavenly bed?
Yeah, who had the heavenly bed in the hotel?
I don't even know what the heavenly bed is.
It's a coolest bed. It's a great bed, right? And you go to this hotel because they've got the heavenly bed, right? Westin Hotel started that, right?
Okay.
And guess how many different kinds of beds there are now in the chains? They all have their own version.
Right.
Sleep number beds, air mattress beds. And they all have a name for it
Yeah.
because it was easy to copy. If it's easy to copy, it will be copied. Don't fight me on that.
I like it.
People complain. I can't believe how many people have complained over the years in my few thousand speeches I've done. Yeah, I did this thing and the competition copied it right away. Well, you do it too. So don't, but no, different. You got to be different, unique, uncopyable.
I love it, man. I love it. Well, guys, hopefully you enjoyed this episode of the Sales Factory with Steve Miller, not the band, the uncopyable Steve Miller, who hangs out with the Mooses. Guys, make sure to hit the subscribe button, like, comment, share it with your friends and family so it gets out to other people.
Right.
Until next time, it's Coach Carroll in the Sales Factory. Hustle, it's worth it.